Hello and welcome to the Books Uncovered podcast, a podcast brought to you by Fulcrum Publishing, where we explore the world of books and the people who make up the publishing and the book world. I'm Sam Shinta, publisher of Fulcrum Publishing, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kateri Kramer, Fulcrum's marketing director. Hi, Kateri, how are you today?
I'm good. I've got my coffee, so things are great. How are you?
Excellent. I'm doing great. As you can see, I'm in the new Fulcrum
Yeah.
Publishing Studios here in Wisconsin. It's amazing what you can do with these virtual backgrounds with just a little bit of. I have like zero creative impulse in myself, and so when I can figure out things to do, I'm like, oh, this is a major victory that I was able to do this
That's
little
great.
background today.
That's
How's
amazing.
how are things in Colorado right now?
We had a little stretch where it was really nice and warm, and it felt like we were getting into spring, but today it's pretty cold and windy.
Mm.
Yeah. How about you guys?
Where it's gray today. Yesterday was about 45. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous February day. And I even saw that we were supposed to be back in there all week, but I think parts of the state today are getting a lot of snow. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's that February is just always a fickle month for the winter time here.
It is. There's that Van Morrison song that my mom used to sing a lot when we were younger. Got to get through January, got to get through February. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately because it feels like, oh, if we can just make it through February.
Well, we've got what 19 more days, I think. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I hear you. This is really the tough slog of the year, isn't it?
It is.
It's everything's gray and everything's just starting up, but we will get more sun and joy soon enough. So
Yes.
well, glad as always that you can join us. We've got a wonderful guest today, Jenny Sinclair. Now, Jenny has always been an avid reader. She loves to discuss, recommend, and share the love with everyone, even if they do not always want to know about it. This is why she joined Bookstagram 2 years ago. She was homeschooling her son and needed to have an outlet and be in touch with the outside world. She never realized how much fun and all the amazing people from every corner of the globe she would meet along the way, which ties nicely with her background in anthropology. She loves to travel and explore offbeat places. I can't wait to hear about these offbeat places, especially those near the ocean. Welcome, influencer and Bookstagram member, Jenny Sinclair. Jenny, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing great. So you are up there in Vermont. You said right near the New Hampshire Vermont border, where last week it was really, really cold. So I'm guessing reading is something that's a fun activity this time of the year.
Yeah, that's what I do. I hibernate and cozy up on the couch and don't leave till spring.
It actually sounds
Well,
pretty amazing.
yeah, it really does. It sounds like a perfect situation. I think we all need to curl up with like 20 of our favorite books and then put a blanket on and just shut out January and February.
Exactly.
Well, I must admit, I'm not really in the Instagram Bookstagram world. So this is a new area for me. Tell me a little bit about Bookstagram. What exactly is this, and how does that operate?
Well, I started out I had no idea what I was getting into when I started. So it's really just to put out and promote books that everybody loves and getting them into, hands of readers. And by doing that, either people will do photographs, which is what I do, and review, or features, spotlights. You can do tours. Publishing houses will get in contact with you. It's really endless what you can do with that. Some people will do reels, so like videos. I'm not so hot on that. And like I said, I started out not knowing at all what I was doing. And then it slowly over 2 years, it's continued to grow for me.
And so is this connected? Is this part of Instagram then?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so it's basically using Instagram to promote books.
Right. Yes.
And
So I
how
have like
big?
book talk on TikTok and stuff like that as well.
Okay, great. So how many followers do you have with your
I have
Bookstagram?
almost 7,000. So
Wow.
trying to get there.
That's fantastic. That's a huge number. And so you're definitely, so you mentioned you get contacted now by publishers who are looking to promote their books. So they're what publishers, and I know Kateri has been in touch with you about our books, but so
Yeah.
publishers will find these people who are doing this in various genres. Do bookstagrammers specialize in certain areas, or do you have general bookstagrammers and then maybe specialized bookstagrammers?
I mean, genres. I mean, I focus mostly on historical fiction and thrillers, but I'll read a little bit of everything. Some people just do thrillers, some people do everything, like, huge variety. So it just depends on who it is and what they're doing. And then you have other people that are doing like 11,000 followers, or, if they have more time. I have a full-time job and a 12-year-old, so I can only put in so many hours a day, but
So, and how many books do you do a week, a year, a month? I mean, how do you gauge that?
so I post once a day at least. Sometimes I do 2 or 3, depending. And I read 149 books last year.
Holy
Yeah.
smokes. Okay.
And
So
that went up. I used to read like maybe 25, 30 a year before I did this. And then they just stack up and they're looking at you and yelling at you. So
wow, that 149 books. That's, oh my gosh, that's like one every 3 days or so. That's amazing. And so you're posting at least every day. Do you just talk a little bit about a portion of the book that you're currently reading, and then eventually kind of add on to that as you get more into the book?
right. So I will do normally when a publisher or an author, however I get a book or I buy one, I'll just post a feature. So it gives us some general synopsis, if it's out now or if when it's coming out, and then an overview and what I'm looking forward to. And then I'll do a review, which will just cover, again, the basic, who's by, when it's coming out, and my whole review. And then you do like a question of the day, so you can get people to take part in it in your comment section, which will help because you have Instagram algorithms that will boot you out all the time. So, trying to just overcome that kind of stuff.
So you mentioned, or I was talking about your bio, and we were talking a little bit before about books. You've always been an avid reader. What sparked that love of reading for you?
I lived in a really small town, and our closest neighbor was a mile away. And we didn't have TV. We had movies. That's about it. So I just read all the time. So since then, I've always just any book, I devour it. So
For people, because I think there's a lot of people out there who would like to kind of engage with the bookstagram space on Instagram, but they maybe don't know where to start or what they should be doing. Do you have advice for people who want to get into that?
yeah. So what I did, I'm not saying what I did was right at all. I just started reviewing my own books that I owned. And then you can get on NetGalley and request books, or when you're first starting out, there's certain books that you can read or anybody can read once you're on there. And you just start piling them up. And then as you get more and more information and more followers, you can apply to be an influencer for certain publishing houses. And certain publishing houses will have Novel Suspects, which will do thrillers. Booksparks has a bunch that you can apply for. So once you have enough followers, the whole thing is getting at least 1,000 followers. By then, even you still have a ton of books that you're getting, or authors that will contact you. That's how I started mostly. Was
Really?
Authors would contact me through there. Yeah.
And are they're finding you, or they follow you already and they think, oh, she reads the type of book I'm writing, maybe I can send it? Is that kind of how that's happening?
Right. So they'll just send me an email and be like, are you interested? I mean, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not, or I'm too busy, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of that happened. And I met a lot of amazing indie authors that way. So.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And also maybe like a hint for authors who are trying to help their publisher with marketing that they should be following Bookstagrammers and building those relationships.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing with me is the authors that will actually share your views or say thank you or reach out. I've met a lot of, not met, but
Yeah.
that way.
Right.
And they've just been amazing. So that'll make you want to read more of their books as well, because they are such cool, interesting people, or nice, kind.
Yeah. That makes a big difference when you ask somebody to do something and then they engage with you after you've actually done it.
Right. Yeah.
Seems like a small ask, but maybe not. I don't know.
Right. And I mean, it's huge. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you have a bunch of books staring at you, kind of giving you the evil eye, like, read me, read me. So are most of the things you're reading hard copy? Or I know NetGalley, obviously they're doing the online. So is there a split? Are you actually getting physical galleys from some authors and publishers?
I'm getting more physical galleys now. Again, once you start building up your followers and getting your name out there more, you will get more physical galleys. I'll get advanced reader copies. Sometimes I'll get final copies. It just depends.
And and I've seen this in many reviews, do you ever post on Amazon or other online sites as well with the books that you like?
Yeah. So with NetGalley, you have to leave one on NetGalley. Goodreads, I'll do it on Goodreads. Amazon, I was doing Barnes and Noble, but they were getting harder to get on there for some reason. Or wherever they ask me. If they want me to, put it wherever they want, I'll put it on there. So.
Wow. What just is fascinating to me is how we've just democratized this whole process, which is wonderful. We found all these people who want to be readers, who want to engage with books across the world, right? And
right.
I mean, that used to be the purview of a very finite number of people at newspapers or magazines, but now it's just spread out, which is quite wonderful.
Right. And then everybody on there loves books. So it's just really, I found so many books I've read or come across if I hadn't been on there. So it's really cool. And then meeting people, other Bookstagrammers. There's a lot of people that you connect with, they'll send you books. I mean, you may save money by not buying books anymore, but you're buying them for other people now.
Your photography is also really, really good. Are you a professional photographer? Did you pick that up like as you were starting Bookstagram? What's your background with that?
I don't have any photography background. I've always loved taking pictures, and I honestly only take the photos of my iPhone. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I've always loved photography. I just don't have training in it.
Sure. I would assume that plays a pretty significant role, though, in like having a cohesive account and like standing out to authors and publishers and looking professional, that kind of thing.
I think so. I mean, for me, that's what catches my eye. Is the reels done really well or the photos done nicely. This time of year it gets harder to figure out a background because I like to use nature a lot. So I get a lot of the same tulips in one, for like a couple of weeks.
Yes. Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love taking pictures. So it was just another nice segue into it.
Cool. Are you reading anything good right now?
I am reading The Woman with the Cure, which is about the polio vaccine.
Nice.
And that's really good. About halfway through.
Is that a historical fiction then?
Yeah, it is. It's coming out at the end of February.
Okay.
Nice.
So Terry was asking before how one becomes a Bookstagrammer. What have you found what have you found has been or have been the biggest challenge or challenges to doing this once you started?
Right. To begin with was just researching it and seeing how to do it correctly. And how to even get, because I didn't know anything about NetGalley, or I'm not an influencer of any kind besides this. So it was just research. I just went Googling for a long time and then tried to figure it out. And then just having patience, because it will take time. you know, some people will pay for followers. I don't do that. And it just takes time to build up. I'll do giveaways, things like that, but
I'd
I'm trying to
imagine
get my
it's
numbers up.
hard in the beginning too, to like stay consistent and like present yourself as if you do have a large following, when for those people just starting out, they maybe have like 300, like you have to
Right.
present yourself the same way as you would if you had 7,000.
Right.
That consistency, I would assume, is harder in the beginning than it is a little bit later on.
Right. And like all these little things that you can do to help people like take part in the conversation, like the question of the day, or, you know, that helps people with connecting with you. Trying to get somebody that has a lot more followers to do a giveaway with you, that helps. Or somebody with a totally different genre, because then you get followers, because you have to join, you know, follow each other in order to win the book. So things like that. The thing I did that was wrong in the beginning was add everybody in the world, and you can only have 7,500 followers or people you follow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
So
you're pretty close to the cap of what you can do.
Well, no, for me. So you can have as many followers, but following people, you can only have 7,500. So
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm already there. So I have to keep going back through, and like people haven't engaged in like 4 or 5 months. I'll have to unfollow them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that is my one thing. Don't go crazy following people.
So you've got the time reading, which is obviously time consuming. How much does it take? How much time does it take to do your 2-3 posts every day and all of this behind the scenes cleanup, administering your lists, all that?
Posting probably, because I do a bunch of pictures all at once. So posting probably takes me 15 minutes, maybe, if that. That's because I haven't had coffee yet. And then at the end of the day, it's probably like 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then reading, I used to watch more TV, so now I watch like one show a night or something. And it's amazing how much more reading you can get done if you give that up. But I also have, like I said, I have a 12-year-old, so he's playing basketball and stuff. So it's trying to balance
everything. But I mean, so it sounds like outside of the reading, though, maybe an hour a day to do the Bookstagram piece of things.
Right. And then you can, like on the weekends, I'll do more just because I have more time. So I'll put in for more pictures and all that. So
okay.
I mean, once you have it down, it doesn't take as long. In the beginning, it took longer because you just don't know. And then you're looking at other people's to see what they do. Just gathering information on what works.
So what has been what that's a great point. What has been the thing that you've discovered that you just didn't know that has just really kind of maybe made it better for you in this process?
You mean probably trying to get all the pictures done ahead of time, and then this year I'm trying to get ahead of so I have a whole planner with probably whatever I have to get out there during the month. So I'm trying to get ahead so I can at least read one of my books that I've bought myself, or one or whatever. So I'm trying to get ahead. So don't overwhelm yourself, I guess, is my biggest thing. Just calm down and you'll get there. but it's easy to get, because I'll do a lot of features. So I'll get the book, but I still want to read the book,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that's one of the struggles too. Is that
what happens if you get a book that you don't like?
Right. And that's what that is probably the biggest struggle I have. Because you want to like everything you read, and especially if it's like one of your favorite authors.
Ooh, yeah, I didn't think about
recently. Normally, because I don't want to kill because it could be me. I could be having an off day. I mean, just whatever. I will write a review like that for Goodreads or whatever, and I'll give good and bad points. And from there, I'll, if it's a tour or something, normally I just do the synopsis on my page. But I honestly have only run into like 3 books like that where I've had
that's good.
not enjoyed them, or I just won't post them. And I have a hard time DNFing books. So where you just won't read the book,
Yeah.
won't finish it. And I don't do that. I try to struggle through. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I haven't decided yet. Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way, or at least I was until like slightly more recently. And I've been kind of putting books aside that I don't love as much anymore, but it's hard because it's like, but what if it gets better?
I know, exactly. And then I'm like, no, it didn't.
Yeah, exactly. It usually doesn't. You can usually tell.
Right. And I mean, I just need to get over that, but
yeah,
it's hard to do because you know how much time people put into them. So
yeah.
Well, and you pointed out this, sometimes it's me. I found that with so many books where I start reading them and it's like, oh yeah, this just isn't doing it. And I'll put it aside. And then, a year later, I'll pick it up and it's just the best book in the world, right? That you just,
right.
It's just whatever you're dealing with at that time or what your brain is looking for might not be that particular book, which must make it challenging when you have a schedule of things that you want to get through. Is reading still fun?
It is. I'm still enjoying it a lot, even though I've upped my book intake a lot. And I'm trying to just add books that I like, that I'm really interested in. Because I have a tendency to just be like, sure, I'll do whatever, So I'm more trying to focus that way as well, which tends to be hard because there's so many books out there that are good. So,
do you do audiobooks?
I haven't.
Really?
I know. You'd think I would. Everybody's like, you need to try it. I just haven't yet. Because I don't drive very far.
Oh, right.
And I have health issues, so I can't exercise that much. So it's either like couch or my work. I have to focus. So
yeah, it's like not as much fun if you're not like doing something else, I guess.
Right. I mean, I need to try it though.
I feel like I've done it where I'm like listening to the book and reading it at the same time, especially if it's a really good narrator. I like that a lot. I'm also just an audio visual learner anyway. So I feel like I can engage with it a little bit better, but I know like my partner can't listen to audiobooks at all for more than like 15 minutes before he loses interest. So,
right. Yeah. I think I need to try it just to see, because I think that's how I be, but I may not be.
Yeah.
And I know people will speed it up too. So
yeah, I listened to it on like 2.5.
Right. You can get
holy cow. Yeah, I tried that with a podcast one time and it just broke my brain. So yeah, I just can't, like, I need to either read it or I need normal speed.
Yeah.
It's just so neat to just learn about this. It's something that, 5 years ago didn't exist and now exists. I know the year is young, but what is the favorite thing you've read this year so far?
My favorite book I've read I read it like the end of December, was The Nightmare Man. It's a horror book, which I don't read too much horror, but the backstory was amazing. I just loved that book. And I also really loved, which I'm going to recommend later for your Valentine's Day reads, is Yesterday's Tides. That one was super good. It's a historical fiction with love through it.
More to come.
Right. I like really atmospheric reads too.
Okay.
So anything set in Scotland on an island, that's all dark and dreary. I like that.
That's brave of you to do that this time of the year.
Right. And I really enjoyed Ghost of the Orphanage. It's a nonfiction book that was set. It's about the orphanage in Burlington, Vermont. They were doing that BuzzFeed article that came out like, 6 years ago, where they investigated all the orphanages and what the nuns were doing to the children. Mm-hmm. That was a little disturbing. And
yeah, that sounds
really close to home. But that was really well written as well. So sorry, I won't say it suggested words.
No. This is, like I said, this is a whole world that is just so fascinating. Do you know about how many bookstagrammers are out there?
I have no idea, but there's a lot. A lot. I have
And you mentioned that you have all kind of built community with each other as well then. So you're dealing with other bookstagrammers as well as with the general public.
right. Yeah. You probably deal more with bookstagrammers because it seems like any reader will segue into that sometimes.
Mhm.
Okay. That makes
Because you don't
sense.
have to have a background in any kind of publishing or editing or anything like that. So, but it just depends, I guess. I have a lot of friends that I've made now that I talk to every day. I mean, there's just a huge, amazing community that are all supportive. I mean, you do have some, just like in any populations.
Yeah, exactly. There's always some bad
most
apples.
of them are amazing and just fun to talk with. And if they see a book that they think you'd like, they send it your way or whatever.
And you are definitely getting the feeling from authors and publishers that what you're doing and what other bookstagrammers are doing is making a difference. You're definitely getting the word out.
That's what it seems like. I mean, and that's a good way to get reviews too, because on Amazon and Goodreads and all that. So.
And so what is your bookstagram handle?
Dive into a good book.
Dive into a good book. Okay. So then when you do reviews, you use the dive into a good book as the tag for your piece.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, this is, like I said, this is just such a new area, and I am just so fascinated. And I really appreciate, as someone in the book biz for a long time, that there are people like you out there that, as I said, are democratizing this process, are really expanding this footprint and giving publishers this whole new platform and foundation to work with, which is just wonderful, because that's always been the challenge. If you have finite reviewers, right, and they're doing 2 reviews a week or 3 reviews a week, but you've got thousands of books coming out, it just means that pipeline is always going to be filled. And so you are absolutely serving a need out there that just exists to make sure that people know about new books, which is just wonderful.
Right. And they're helping us with all of our addictions of books. So.
Yes, we all have book addictions. Speaking of which, this is that time where we talk about our book addiction, the hey, what you reading? And because it is almost Valentine's Day, as you referenced before, we're talking about love stories this episode. So books about love, or books that feature love stories or love in some way is a part of the action. So let's go ahead and start with you, Jenny, and you've got some recommendations for us.
So, like I mentioned before, Yesterday's Tide is bringing it in the backwards, but by Roseanne M. White. It's a fantastic story about World War I, actually. It's about innkeepers on an island off the coast, and they discuss like U-bombings, but the women of the family will love hard and have one true love. And then the way all that just weaves together is amazing. And just this backstory is awesome. And then the other one I thought was good was Spells for Forgetting by Andrian Young. And this is more magical realism, but also a love story, mystery combination. Again, it's off the coast, an island off the coast of the Pacific. Again, it's just one of those atmospheric reads that draws you in, and it's awesome. And it's about first loves that come back and rediscover each other with some drama. So
wonderful recommendations. Yeah, and I love this idea of atmospheric stories, right? So these stories that immerse the reader in that time, in that place, even if it's imaginary, right? That's this whole thing of the book transporting you that way.
Couch travel.
I love it. Oh, yeah. And you know what? We didn't talk about the bizarre travel before we get to Kateri's pick. Tell me about this bizarre travel passion you have.
Oh, no, I just love, I don't like to go. I'm not a huge fan of like lots of people. So I'm not a cruise ship type of girl or Disney World. I lived in Anguilla for a couple of years, which is 6 miles from St. Martin. So off the beaten path, let's just go see something different. Or Portugal, where you discover a palace that's all built, grown up, don't know what's going on with it, that later becomes a hotel I can't afford to stay at anymore. Things like that.
Yeah.
But I love to travel, love Scotland. Again, the off the beaten path type thing. Drummond Castle, which is probably not off the beaten path since Outlander used it as a location. But just gorgeous places that are totally swarmed with people.
Yeah, I think this is a mutual Love Scotland podcast here. I went there last year, and Kateri gave me all sorts of tips before I headed over there, and I just fell in love with the place. I could move there tomorrow and just live there.
Awesome.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the people are amazing, and everything you see is amazing. Yeah, it's just a great place.
I know. I'm like, castles everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to do archaeology, so.
Oh yeah, so that definitely scratches that itch. Yeah.
Exactly.
How about you, Kateri? Love stories.
So I did two kind of different ones. And I might have chosen this before, but it's worthy of a second mention. Normal People by Sally Rooney is one of my favorite books. And it's kind of follows these two young people through high school into college and after a bit. And I just like how real it feels. And the writing is excellent and the character development is amazing. And surprisingly, the Hulu series that goes along with it, I would say it's not as good as the book, but it stands up pretty well. My second pick, a different kind of love, is, let me get the right name here. It is Fight Night by Miriam Teves. Which is about a granddaughter and a grandmother. And it's just so good. It's funny, it's heartbreaking. The writing is really good. The characters are ones that I was never able to be like, oh, this reminds me of somebody else. They felt very unique and special. And I maybe read it in 2020, but it's a book that I could very easily go back to. So kind of like a different type of love, but definitely worthy of some Valentine's love.
Oh, that is great. Excellent recommendations.
How about you, Sam?
So I picked two nonfiction romance stories. It's a genre I read in fiction, but not traditional romance stories. It's just I've read a lot of books about love, but I just thought, well, I'd do something a little different. So my first is a book, and neither of them are expressly about love, but love forms the very important background of both stories. The first is a book called Hope Against Hope, which is by Nadezhda Mandelstam. And so Nadezhda Mandelstam was the widow of Osip Mandelstam, who was the greatest poet in the Soviet Union and Russia in the 20th century. And he was arrested during the Stalinist purges and executed. And so this is the story of both his life, but also her life, both with him and without him as his widow. So there is this beautiful love story that touches on the importance of art, the importance of hope in these dire circumstances. It gives you a front row seat to the Stalinist purges, and he brings in wonderful characters like Anna Akhmatova, one of my favorite poets. And so it's just a wonderful, wonderful book where love is there present in all of its difficult forms. And then another is Vera, Mrs. Vladimir Nabokov by Stacy Schiff. And this is a biography that won the Pulitzer Prize. I believe it was the Pulitzer Prize for a few years back. It's the story of Vladimir Nabokov's wife, Vera, but in the process tells a story of their relationship. And Nabokov had this wonderful quote. He said, "Without my wife, I wouldn't have written a single novel. that he was basically writing for himself first and then for her. And so she was his reader. She was the one who basically was his first editor, that inspired him, that pushed him, that made him great. And so you just have this beautiful literary story of two giants, somebody we really know and remember as an author, but then of course somebody who is not as well known, but is just as important in forming the art. So it gets to this whole story of who creates art, and this whole idea of kind of punctures the myth that like great artists create things just by themselves. They have these people who love and support them and make those things happen and make them better in the process. So those are my picks.
Those both sound really good.
Yeah, wonderful books. Well, Jenny Sinclair, thank you so much for joining us and opening up this world of Bookstagram to us and informing us of all the different ways that people can get involved in this process. So we really, really appreciate you joining and you keep on reading. This is just wonderful that you're doing this.
Yes. Thank you guys for having me. It's fun.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Thanks.